Good morning.
Yeah, good
and before we get started, I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that we're going to be, today's schedule is a light one. We will be only doing the public hearings. We'll not be going into work session today. So with that, we'll get started. Good morning and welcome to the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. The committee is assembled electronically today for the purpose of inviting public comment on legislation. Before we get started, just to share some information related to the fact that this meeting is being conducted on Zoom. We are currently being live streamed, and this will be recorded on the committee's YouTube channel. That means while we're on Zoom, we can be seen and heard if your mic is unmuted. People testifying or planning to testify are actually in the category which is called attendees. And when it's time for you to be transferred into the panelist group, you'll be brought in. And during that time, there's a brief window in which you'll be locked out. It'll look like you've been kicked out of Zoom, but then you'll come right back and you'll show up in the boxes. At that point, you'll be able to be seen and heard if you're unmuted. Want to do a quick check, make sure we all have our Zoom identifiers right so people know how to address us. Thank you. And so at this point, I would ask members to introduce themselves. Representative Geiger, would you start us off?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Representative Valley Geiger, District 93, Rockland and Owl's Head.
Good morning. My name is John Andrews. I represent District 73 in Western Maine, Buckfield, Hebron, and Paris.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Pepworth in the Blue Hill Peninsula, House District 133.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Amanda Collimore, House District 106, Pittsfield, Clinton, and Detroit.
Good morning. I'm Senator Scott Searway and represent District 16, which covers Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, and Unity Township.
Good morning, Representative Jack Ducharme, representing House District 111, which is Madison, Norwich Walk, and beautiful downtown Solon.
Good morning, everyone. I am Representative Sue Waston, hailing from my hometown of Gray. I also have portions of Raymond and Casco, and I have all of Frye Island. And Mr. Chair, if I may, I felt remiss last night after kind of reviewing the other day's meeting, and I was speaking with Representative LaRochelle saying how I wanted to welcome her to our wonderful group. And I just want to do the same for Representative Andrews and welcome him back to the table. It's great to see everybody and have a full complement. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, Representative Austin, for that message. I concur.
Representative Tavis Hassenfuss from Winthrop, Wheatfield, and part of Monmouth.
Good morning, Representative Reagan LaRochelle, House District 86, which is part of Augusta.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sue Bernard. I represent House District 149, which is Caribou, Westmanland, and New Sweden. And this beautiful place behind me is my Northern Light area. Absolutely gorgeous.
And good morning. I'm your Senate Chair, Chip Curry. I represent Senate District 11, which includes the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County. Let's see if there's a couple other announcements, and then we'll get started into our first public hearing. A reminder that to limit use of chat to only technical issues if you have questions for our clerk and our analyst, and that's always my reminder to make sure to introduce them. So I want to welcome our clerk, who is Eva Reed. And Eva, if you could share your camera for a second, if you're there. And if anyone's having technical issues, they can chat to Eva, or she on the if you're in the Zoom, you are listed as IDEA Committee Eva, and what is our Eva, what is our phone number also? The committee phone number, if anyone
The
needs to
committee
reach
phone
you?
number is right beside me up here on my title card. It's 207-287-4880.
Excellent, excellent. It's a little small to see if depending, you might have to pin that as speaker view. So thank you very much. And then our committee analyst is Rachel Olson, and both of them will be serving the committee throughout the day and the session. So thank you very much. See, so we'll as we open up when we open up the public hearing, we'll start we have a standard process. We'll have the sponsor speak. We'll have those for the bill, those against the bill, and then finally we'll wrap up with those neither for nor against the bill. People can register in advance or they through the committee's website. We do limit testimony to 3 minutes, and if you start approaching that time, I'll give you a wave or catch your attention to let you know to wrap up. We'll now open up the hearing on LD 1810. As I am the speaker, I think I have to hand this off LD 1810 to Ms. Olson. What is the protocol of who I hand this off to?
That's a good question that I don't know the answer to.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Representative Austin.
I believe that it would go to the ranking minority.
I think so too.
Representative Bernard.
Yep. So Representative Bernard, would you mind leading us off in taking the chair for LD 1810?
Not at all. Okay, so we're starting the hearing for LD 1810, and I believe our first speaker is going to be Senator Chip Curry.
Thank you, Representative Bernard, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. I'm pleased to sponsor LD 1810 on behalf of the State Board of Licensure for Professional Engineers. The board submitted LD 1810 to reduce a barrier for young engineers who want to become licensed. Nationally, it is estimated that only about 20% of all engineering graduates ever become licensed as professional engineers. Being licensed makes engineers accountable to protect Maine citizens. These licensed professional engineers design and oversee the construction of bridges, roads, dams, drinking water and wastewater systems, commercial buildings, and commercial plumbing, electrical, and fire safety systems, and more. Professional engineers complete an extensive and rigorous licensure process that includes a 4-year degree, the first national exam, 4 years of work experience under licensed professional engineers, and a second national exam. Some young engineers come to the end of their work experience and find the need to postpone taking their second exam because work, marriage, children, or civic responsibilities make it hard to carve out the time needed to prepare. Some of them never take the exam, costing them opportunity and Maine a licensed engineer. LD 1810 allows young engineers to choose the time when they are best prepared to take their second professional exam. It does not change any licensure requirements. Licensure candidates still need to complete all requirements before being licensed. This is a sensible solution that empowers young engineers to take the next step in their careers and has been successfully implemented in 27 other states so far. Thank you. Now I'm available for questions. However, this is a department bill and those might be best directed to those who come next.
Do you have any questions? Anyone have any questions for Senator Curry? Yes, Senator Searway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When it makes it easier, and you mentioned what all the roadblocks that cause them not to get licensed, how would it make it easier when they still got to meet the criteria and the testing and all that?
The change that is being proposed, and I will again refer to the department folks but the change is not to allow people to take the test sooner. They would still have to have the work experience, but they don't have to accumulate the work experience before they take the test. So they could take the test. Oftentimes in a young engineer's life, it gets really complicated. And this is a pretty massive test that takes a year of preparation for it. And so it's giving them that flexibility to study when their life situation allows them to study.
So this is basically just allowing them to take the test earlier.
That is my understanding of the details of the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that question has been answered. I appreciate it. Are there any other questions for Senator Searway? Senator Searway, do you take the reins back at this moment?
Senator Curry, no, at this point, that's an interesting question. I'm happy to. Yeah, why don't we go ahead and do that? And I think
I don't think that you're able to because it's your bill.
Right.
Ms. Olson, do you have a position on that?
I
Is
don't.
that general standard?
Yeah, I don't have a position on that. So generally speaking, if the House chair or in this case, the Democratic majority senator is not there, then the Senate Republican or the House Republican lead would take over, but that's more tradition than anything else. So, you can leave the,
Bernard, if you're comfortable just going to the next, leading us through the public hearing, that would be great. And it would just go to the next person for it, and I believe that's David Jackson, who is here to speak. And I apologize for putting you on the spot. I didn't quite figure out the change.
Not a problem at all. I can't tell from my list here who's supposed to be next. You're telling me David Jackson. The next person I actually saw was Edward Chanette. But I'll mention David Jackson. I'm not sure how to tell who's in the queue.
David Jackson is first.
Thank you very much. And may I ask, how do I tell that that's how that goes?
I can forward you the email I sent to Senator Curry and Representative Roberts.
I'm sure that's the answer right there. Okay, thank you. I'll look for that. David Jackson, if you're there and ready to testify, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Representative Bernard, and good morning, Senator Curry. I see Representative Roberts isn't here, but other members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. A special shout out to Senator Searway, who is my senator. My name is David Jackson. I'm the Executive Director of the State Board of Licensure for Professional Engineers. I am here to speak in support of LD 1810, which does remove barriers for young engineers who then will be permitted to decide for themselves when they are best prepared to take the second professional engineering examination. Professional engineering licensure takes significant commitment, and as Senator Curry mentioned, only about 20% of all engineering graduates ever get licensed. And professional engineers are the ones who are in responsible charge of infrastructure and large projects. They oversee other engineers, they oversee other trades, and they are held accountable under Maine law to protect the public. The licensure process is lengthy. In addition to the four-year degree, there are both national exams that they have to pass, and they have to complete an experience requirement that we typically say is 4 years, but can range from 2 to 8 years depending on their education. A graduate degree reduces that requirement. A non-accredited degree, or what is called a related science degree, such as physics and math, extend that requirement. So this bill does not change any of the licensure requirements. It's still a person who's applying for licensure must meet all of the licensure requirements, and we prove that experience with references and employment verification from their supervisors and employers. The biggest obstacle that most people talk about when they face the second level exam is the time to prepare. And it's an extremely difficult exam. I will mention it is an open book exam, and still the most recent administration of the PE civil exam in October resulted in a national pass rate that averaged between 54 and 67%, depending on the civil engineering discipline. So it is a very difficult exam, and we get communication. I have a 3-drawer filing cabinet full of applications of people who have either never been able to sit for the exam or who sat for it once and have never been able to get back to it. So carving out that time to study is very difficult, and allowing these young engineers the flexibility to carve out that time when they know that they're ready to take that exam just gives them the ability to decide for themselves what the best time is in their life to take that exam. And we think that that's the appropriate choice. I will point out that the National Society for Professional Engineers is in favor of this. The American Society of Civil Engineers is ambivalent, although their only request is that we maintain the experience requirement, which we absolutely intend to do. You'll hear from the American Council of Engineering Companies in favor, and our discussions with the Structural Engineering Society, the Structural Engineer Association of Maine, indicates that they are also in favor of this bill. So data compiled by the National Council indicates that there's no statistically significant difference in pass rates for people who take the exam early versus those who take it after the 4 years are completed. And one of the unanticipated benefits that has been remarked in every single state where this statute change has occurred is that additional people enter the licensure pipeline and additional engineers become licensed. And as you know, a recent massive infrastructure bill was passed, and we need more engineers in Maine. So thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. I see a question from Representative Austin.
Thank you, Representative Bernard. David, I'm going to assume that once that first test is taken, no matter how long a span of time goes from there, that still stays in place no matter what. That never goes away from them.
That's
so
correct.
They just accrue moving forward.
That's correct.
Thank you. Now, I think somebody gave, it might have been our Senate chair who cited, what was the percentage of folks that do have it here in Maine, the double certification?
Nationally, about 20% of all engineers ever get licensed. So it varies somewhat by discipline. There are more civil engineers who become licensed than, say, electrical or chemical engineers. But so it sort of ranges as civil engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical, and then other disciplines. But the more engineers we have licensed, then the more individuals are accountable to all of us to maintain public safety.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Representative Austin. I have a quick question since I don't see another hand up right now. First of all, Mr. Jackson, thank you very much for explaining the one big question I had in my mind, which was, in the experience of the other states who have this particular rule in place, that they actually do have more professional, or that they are able to gain more professional engineers and engineer interns. So that's great. In your experience, or have you been able to find any reasons from other entities who don't think that this is a good idea? And I don't ask you to make testimony on the other side, but I'm just wondering if there's any problems that have been spoken of out loud with having this rule change.
The concerns that have been expressed come from largely one of the main objections was we've never done it this way before. It's always been, this way, and we understand that people are uncomfortable with change. However, there have been no issues raised in any of the other states, and I will mention Nevada made this change in 2005, and California has always allowed individuals to take the exam 2 years after graduating. And Maine has always licensed those California engineers once they meet the experience requirement in Maine that's required under Maine statute. So there haven't been any significant issues. Some people have said they feel that people shouldn't be able to take this test, that it should test the combined sort of application of knowledge with the experience. However, that doesn't account for the varying degrees of quality mentorship and people's innate ability. So it's a hard, while I understand their argument, it doesn't make sense to me, because I think if people are able to pass the test, they should be allowed to pass the test and get that step out of the way while they continue their career.
Thank you very much. And this might be the time to mention that I would agree with you, especially now that we're having such a hard time to fill positions, and the more the merrier in terms of people in the workforce. Just my thoughts. A question from Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Representative Bernard. Mr. Jackson, so I'm a nurse. We also become licensed. And I'm trying to imagine if 80% of nursing students never became licensed. So I'm having trouble even understanding how this works. So 80% of engineers never become licensed. They, I assume, continue to work as engineers, but without that sort of final ability to carry a project. They're working underneath the licensed engineer.
Some do, but an engineering education is a key and a doorway to really any profession. The two co-valedictorians of my law school class, and I went to law school at 42, so the two co-valedictorians of my law school class both had engineering undergraduate degrees. That's a fantastic basis for a law degree. There are also more Fortune 500 CEOs with an engineering background than any other background. So an engineering background is actually a phenomenal entry into almost any profession.
Thank you. That's helpful. My other question to you is just for those 27 states, particularly Nevada and California, since they have the longest experience, have we seen an increase in licensure from the 20% that's significant?
I don't know that it's significant, but there is a steady increase. There has been a consistent increase in licensed engineers, and in every single one of the 27 states that have implemented this. So that bodes well for Maine and for all of the other states where this is implemented. And there's no increase in complaints against individuals' practice, which is also key.
Thank you so much, Representative Geiger, and for your answer, David. Any other questions for Mr. Jackson? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our next testifier.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from if he's in the room. Edward Jeanette.
I just promoted him to a panelist. He should be here in a
Okay.
second.
Let me see.
And there he is. I see him. I see him in the
Good morning,
corner.
guys.
Welcome, Mr. Jeanette.
Thank you so
And you
much.
have some testimony for us.
Absolutely.
Take the floor.
Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, and Economic Advancement in Business. My name is Edward Jeanette. I've been an environmental engineer at Wood PLC for the past 5 years, and I've held a professional engineer license since June 2020. I'm testifying today on behalf of American Council of Engineering Companies of Maine, ACEC Maine. The membership of ACEC Maine is made up more than 60 consulting engineering firms throughout the state from all engineering disciplines. ACEC Maine supports LD 1810 as a straightforward proposal that allows an applicant some flexibility to take the principle and practices of engineering examination, PE, at any point during the 5-year period of mandated work experience before licensing. This experience is not a waiting period, but more of an apprenticeship that is validated by at least 3 licensed professional engineers in good standing with the board. We believe this decoupling flexibility will allow better opportunities for taking this exam without sacrificing the rigor of the licensing requirements, which do not change under this legislation. Currently, we have to take the fundamentals of engineering, which we call FE and PE exams. So think of it as a part 1 and part 2 exams. So both of those exams are important to ensure the standards of competency in engineering discipline, but there is no need to wait 5 years for the part 2, which is the PE exam. This change will not result in any reduction of requirement for the licensure. As engineers, even with this potential change, we maintain the responsibility and liability to protect public health through actual job experience and demonstrate our ability to retain important technical information years after the exam is taken. Hands-on engineer experience and passing both exams are both important requirements for being approved as a licensed professional engineer. Decoupling the timing of the exam may allow recent graduates to retain robust information for the exam, and while having a better chance of passing, resulting in more qualified engineers. We understand that many states are following this policy and have not seen detrimental changes to the licensing process. We applaud the PE board for engaging the professional engineer community through the stakeholder process that helped to advance this proposed legislation from where it was years prior. Thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeanette. I have a quick question for you before I turn this over. And this is rather personal, but as a newly licensed person, can you just tell us how long it took for you to study for the exam that you needed to take to get your licensure?
Yeah, so it's for me and for my colleagues that I worked with, it takes about a year. So usually whenever we prepare, so we take part 1 and part 2, like I said, FE, and then we take PE. It took me about probably around 6 to 8 months to study for my first exam, which was FE, which I took in I don't remember when I took it, 2013. For the second part, I took it in 2020, but I studied for about a year, and it's pretty standard from my experience from talking to the colleagues. Obviously, we have to maintain our work, so we work full time as well while we study for the exam. If you don't have to work, maybe it'll take less than that, but it's about a year. It's an 8-hour exam, both of them 8-hour exams. So it takes about a year to study if you want to pass it. So
And you'd like to pass it. So
yeah,
congratulations.
we would like to pass it.
Congratulations on passing
Thank
it,
you.
and I'm glad that you've joined the workforce. I believe that means that you're here in Maine.
I'm here in Maine. Yep, our company is an international company, but we have office in Portland. So
Perfect. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Jeanette? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Jeanette.
thank you, guys.
Thank you. And we'll move on to our last piece of testimony from Joyce Taylor of Winthrop.
She'll be popping in a moment.
Hello, Ms. Taylor.
Hi, that was a little,
Welcome to the Idea B Committee.
thank you. You do
And
feel like you're getting booted off, so.
I know it's that moment of being in limbo that's kind of scary. So thank you for hanging in there. You have some testimony for us on
I
LD
do.
1810. Take
I
the floor.
do. Senator Curry and distinguished members of the Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement and Business. My name is Joyce Noel Taylor. I am before you today in support of LD 1810. While in my professional career, I serve as Chief Engineer at Maine DOT. I am submitting testimony as a private citizen and an ex officio member of the Board of Licensure for Professional Engineers. I've been a member of this board since 2013. While a member, I have taken part in many conversations over decoupling the professional engineer exam from the requirement of 4 years of experience. I support LD 1810 because I think it removes a barrier to licensure. One of the benefits that decoupling provides is it allows people to take the 8-hour exam when they are ready. Many people find as they go on with their careers, they're working more hours or they start to have significant family commitments. Our goal is to provide more flexibility so more young professionals become licensed professional engineers and hopefully stay in the state of Maine. The board has consulted with various professional societies to inform licensed engineers about the benefits of decoupling. Maine has also been licensing professional engineers from other states that already decouple the exam from experience. Current statute has more barriers for people who take the licensing test in Maine than in 27 other states. I think it's time to decouple, and doing so will create fairness for Maine residents. It is my belief that there has been no increase in negligence or incompetency complaints in the 27 states that currently decouple. It is for these reasons that I am before you today in support of LD 1810. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor. Any questions for our panel, for our panelists? I think that was pretty clear cut, obviously, Ms. Taylor. I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we have come to the end of our testimony, I believe, from the note that I have. So, and you watch, I will not wrap this up properly. So I do ask for your indulgence on this, but Senator Curry, I will just say that we're at the end of our hearing for LD 1810. And now we will move on. But before we do, I'd like to turn this back over to our chair, Senator Curry.
Senator Curry, and just go ahead and close the public hearing.
And I close the public hearing.
Perfect.
On 1810.
So unfortunately, I am also the sponsor of 1811. So I'm gonna hand it back to you to open the public hearing on 1811.
That would have been good to know yesterday. Okay, so let's begin with LD 1811. And we have 3 folks testifying, and we will begin with Senator Chip Curry.
Thank you, Representative Bernard. Representative Bernard and distinguished colleagues of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. My name is Chip Curry, and I'm the state senator from continue to be from Senate District 11, which includes the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County. I live in Belfast and pleased to sponsor this annual bill, LD 1811, on behalf of the Finance Authority of Maine and the various state issuers of private activity bonds. The bill establishes the allocation of the state ceiling on issuance of federal tax exempt bonds for calendar years 2022 and 2023. It does not involve any general obligation bonding or other responsibility on the part of the state, but rather federal bond cap allocation authority. These bonds help spur economic activity at no cost to the state. The bill allocates use of the federal ceiling on tax exempt bonds, which may in turn provide lower cost mortgages, student loans, and business financing for Maine people. The representatives of FAME and Maine Housing, 2 of the private activity bond issuers in the state, are available today to support the bill and to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for your consideration, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Senator. Do we have any questions for Senator Curry? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to, and by the way, if I don't see you, sometimes those little yellow hands don't show up really well for me. Just say something or wave your hand. Okay, let's move on to our second piece of testimony, and that will be offered by Eric Jorgensen. If he's here.
I just promoted him. He's in limbo right now.
Hello, Mr. Jorgensen. I know that you are, you're not a fledgling to this limbo place. So here we go.
I'm comfortable being in limbo. Well, it's nice to see everybody here today. Senator Curry, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement and Business. My name is Eric Jorgensen. I'm the Senior Director of Government Relations and Communications at the Maine State Housing Authority, Maine Housing. I'm really actually quite glad to see my colleague Bill Norbert here, because he knows this stuff probably better than anybody. So he can answer some of your tough questions, but I'm happy to start off here. I'll say that Maine State Housing Authority is Maine's housing finance agency created by the legislature in 1969 to address the problems of unsafe, unsuitable, overcrowded, and unaffordable housing. We issue bonds to finance single-family and multifamily housing for Maine's low and moderate income citizens. These bonds are moral obligation bonds, and they're repaid from mortgage payments, and they're not paid for by the state's general fund or any state funds. So I'll just say that again, these bonds are paid for by mortgage holders and debtors, not by the state. So we're structured as an independent agency to utilize effective private methods of finance for public purpose, and to be independent and to be responsive. We act as an agent for the state in administering several federal programs, from rental subsidies and emergency rent relief, weatherization, federal low-income housing tax credit program, Section 8. We receive state general fund revenue for homeless shelter programs and a dedicated portion of the real estate transfer tax for the Housing Opportunities for Maine Fund. So that's just some background there. But we support LD 1811 and act to provide allocations for the state ceiling on private activity bonds for 2022 and 23, and we urge your approval. This is a bill that comes before you on an annual basis, and we need this in order for Maine Housing and for FAME and other agencies to issue private activity bonds. And I'll just say a little bit about what those are. The federal government has determined many years ago that there are certain private activities that have a public purpose. Chief among these in our minds are home ownership and college education and the construction of low-income housing. And to help further those goals, the federal government allows the states to issue a limited number of tax-exempt bonds, which are also called private activity bonds. And so for most states, the amount of bonds that are allowed to be sold is determined by a per capita calculation. And for smaller states like Maine, there's a small state minimum. So that number is now indexed. So the authorization to do this comes from the federal government, and what you're voting on today would be or what you will be voting on next week would be to allocate these things. This bill does two things. First, it makes any needed adjustments to the allocation for 2022, which this committee and the legislature enacted last year. That was LD 20. And second, it makes an initial allocation for the calendar year 2023. So I'd just say these support worthwhile economic activity in Maine, all in a way that doesn't require any state funding. We urge your support, and we really thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to try to take questions. But again, as I said, I think Mr. Norbert could even answer them better than I could.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Jorgensen. Do we have any questions? Okay, that was wonderful. Seeing none, I will allow you to leave the meeting if you'd like to, and we'll move on to our final piece of testimony, and will be offered by William Norbert. Mr. Norbert, I see you there.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative Bernard and distinguished members of the IDEA Committee. My name is Bill Norbert. I'm the Governmental Affairs and Communications Manager at the Finance Authority of Maine, and I'm pleased to be here today in support of this annual bill, LD 1811. We want to thank Senator Curry for sponsoring this bill again on our behalf this year. As Mr. Jurgensen mentioned, the bill is presented annually on behalf of Maine's private activity bond issuers, and those include FAME, the State Treasurer, the Maine Municipal Bond Bank, and Maine Housing. They are all in support of this bill. We are a very collegial group. We meet annually to take a look at what we've used, what we might need to carry over, and what we might need for the next year. And this bill helps execute that goal. As Mr. Jurgensen also mentioned, the rules for this bond cap are set forth in the Internal Revenue Code, and they're quite stringent. No state money is involved. The state isn't on the hook for repayment of these bonds, nor does it have any effect on the state's debt. In the case of FAME, we're authorized to issue tax-exempt bonds for the benefit of certain for-profit manufacturers, solid waste companies, 501c3 organizations. We can also issue bonds for alternative or private student loans. And as was mentioned, the other bond issuers use their authority to provide lower cost mortgages and business financing for Maine people and municipalities. Attached to my testimony is a colored graph with statistics to help give you a better sense of how the money's been used and allocated over the years. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about this and appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
I really didn't go far away. Are there any questions for Mr. Norbert? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Norbert, for being here today.
Welcome. Thank you.
And as I believe I learned from the last one, I think that we can now close the public hearing on LD number 1811. And with that, now I think I can turn this meeting back over to Senator Curry.
Thank you very much, Senator Representative Bernard. And with that, that completes the public hearing schedule for today. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just because, as I mentioned earlier.
So moved.
Get it. So moved. Thank you. And all in favor.